So, good evening. This is Laurie Wondra with Yourlifecore and coming back to you with another Blog Talk Radio. And tonight it's a little bit different. I have a co-host with me, Mark Griffon. I'm actually in Sedona, Arizona and celebrating the sunshine here and invited Mark to join in with me tonight. So, welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Laurie, and to all of your listeners. You're broadcasting from the friendly confines of the Red Rocks.
It's amazing here.
The views here, if you could see them, would stun you.
Yeah, we were out in the sunshine all today and absorbing the energy, and thought we'll bring some of that information too, just how the importance of land is. Mark actually has a business here in Sedona, Arizona, Sedona Mystical Tours. And I met Mark about, 9 or 10 years ago. I have lost track. And did an extensive amount of work on the land. And so it's a continual place for me to come and relax, rejuvenate, do some work. But Mark's been here for
23 years.
23 years and has a close tie to the Sedona Red Rocks. He's also an amazing astrologer. And as promised, I want to talk about some of the events that are coming up in March and April. We've got a solar eclipse in early March, and
March
then
8th,
and then a lunar eclipse,
March 28th,
and
the equinox.
And the equinox. So March is going to be exceptionally powerful for a lot of people. In fact, most people. And as we know, 2016 is a year about moving into your I am energy. It's moving into higher consciousness, into community, and along with those things, there's a lot of work on our shadow self or our inner self. And so I thought it perfect to ask Mark to join us tonight and talk about our shadow energy, because that's a lot of the work that he helps people through here in Sedona, and a lot of what I'm seeing back in Minnesota or people that I've worked with all over the United States. So let's talk about a little bit about just what is the shadow energy and why exactly are we experiencing it now, because I've received a tremendous amount of questions in the last 3 or 4 months of people just saying, what is going on? What's happening? Why is it happening? How do I stop it? And I tell people, my sense is we really don't want to stop it. We want to welcome it in a comfortable way that we can, because it helps us move through change and evolution. And Mark, I'm wondering what your thoughts are about the shadow energy and some things that you've seen recently.
Well, personally, I've gone through many stages of viewing that aspect within myself. My phraseology for shadow could easily be considered the wounded child, the inner child, the ancestral wounds that we carry. In many cases, these are deeply unconscious influences, conscious overlays from our parents or grandparents. They're also a continuation of our lives wherever we have existed, where let's say discord and disharmony and trauma have been experienced in those lives and in our current life. And part of ourselves, the ego's need to survive, may suppress it, and over the course of years or lifetimes, that energy is being brought to the surface with certain planetary movements, certain lessons we're meant to learn in life. And it surfaces much like the crud from the bottom of the pot when you stir it. And the, let's say, astrological weather for the next few months is asking each one of us, and collectively humanity, to get that spatula or spoon and scrape the crud, the ingredients that have surfaced off of our core soul essence and spirit, so that more of this newness, these new energies, have a pathway in, because new and old really can't exist at the same place. If you look at it from a point of physics or chemistry, there has to be the transforming of one through the other. And typically you think transforming, that's changing something from one element to another. You think of the element of fire, and this influence that's coming in for the next few months is kind of like a fire beneath our butts. It's going to just be percolating and percolating and percolating, causing many of us to think we're almost losing our mind at times, because so many of these core issues that have been suppressed, not acknowledged, or numbed, which a lot of us are doing, they're refusing not to be acknowledged now. The inner child is refusing not to be heard.
Right.
And when that kicks in, that shadow element comes into your life, nothing in your life is going to flow. It's like you're hitting a wall, and it could bring in a deep sense of fear, anxiety, even panic.
So all these influences are really intended to have us move forward. And would you say it's true, we've been through these cycles before? We've been through these intensities in previous years, even previous months. We've had an intense time period last September and in through the winter months. So this is just a continuation of things that trigger us
And
with purpose, right?
And one reason why these influences have been coming through in intervals is to give us the chance and opportunity to remove them bit by bit. And if you've been denying that, then you're going to have almost like a dump truck land in the front yard of your life.
So that's a really, really good point, Mark, and I think that's one that we can stress for our listeners, is that to do the work, and you and I have joked over the years about doing the work, but it really is important to do it at these layers and to really take the time and discover the tools, discover the inner energy of yourself to work through it, so that it doesn't become a dump load of stuff, that it just becomes some topsoil that you can maybe move
Much
away.
like weeds in the yard.
Yeah, weeds away. That's a better analogy.
Metaphor.
And again, if we look at it, if we think about it, that these are gifts from the universe, or this is intended for us in order for us to get to a better place, we stop thinking about us being in the muck and being in this bad place. And what are maybe some tools or some things that you've helped people move through this?
Okay. Look, the thing about hitting that place of the muck, it's almost like
People
getting stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
But
People often say they feel stuck and they don't know what to do.
and you have to get pulled out.
Right.
Some of the ways that I've done it myself, as well as how I promote ideas for others, is accessible things. Getting back into nature.
Yeah.
Nature can heal you more than pretty much any other human facilitator. It's allowing that divine essence, or this authentic part of yourself, to come to the surface. There's no projections from anything. There's no distractions from anything else, and it's just you with yourself and these conditions that have been sitting there waiting for your attention.
And we've been talking a lot about the 528 hertz and that the earth is now at this higher frequency. So getting out in nature, you get to that place of pristine energy. It's crystal and it's pristine and it's healed. And in many places I've found it absorbs. So it's a great place to release and just let go of old energy.
And it calms the brainwave patterns. And we have this busy cycle, hamster wheel. In nature, you have less and less distraction, even electromagnetic distortions affecting you. And eventually that cycle, that hamster, slows down. Mm-hmm. When it does, the brain shifts into a different pattern, like an alpha, then theta. And you, before you know it, you just feel relaxed, at ease, and at peace.
Right.
And when you're in that state, then you can more clearly see the underlying tones, the conditions that have led to the various distresses that you're, in a sense, trying to get away from. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't necessarily allow you to get away from it. It just allows you to see it clearly.
Yeah. And some people aren't in a place that they can get out in a pristine place of nature, or because of seasons, like cold season, weather season, or they're not able to. So sound is also an amazing.
Using various sound tools, and if you don't have a singing bowls or chimes or gong, you could just go online and find all kinds of great recordings on YouTube involving meditative frequencies that you can play for hours in your house. You could play it as you go to sleep. And that also will quiet the mind, similar to the way nature does. And giving yourself that 20 minutes a day just by yourself and in your own space without the distraction, if you don't have accessibility to nature, can serve that purpose. Utilizing incense, essential oils, the sense of smell, the sense of touch can bring us into that moment. It could pull us out of the past and keep us from thinking about the future.
Part of what we're experiencing now is that past, or that the triggering things, and it's with an intent for us to pull up old memories and actually feel them.
We have to feel them.
We have to feel them because we're now in this 528, which is the heart, and that's our emotions and feelings. And so if we continue to avoid them, that's where the muck layers in. And so as our listeners work through that emotion, what we're talking about is nature and sound and oils. That's a way to release it, but it's not a way to avoid or to stop the actual feeling of that. And I think that's what you're saying, is find that 20 minutes a day to just be with yourself and feel, and allow yourself to feel, whether it's anger or happiness or hatred, or some of those things that come up for you. And we've been conditioned
suppressing them.
To suppress them, and go to your room and cry, or leave the boardroom, or put on your face, your poker face, with all these sayings that we have that prevent us from experiencing them. And this is a time with the planets. And can you tell us a little bit about Uranus and just how the quick changes of that, what that planet's going to do for us this year?
Yeah, well, let's go back. For the last 3 years, the two planets of Uranus and Pluto have been doing a dance, aspecting each other at 90-degree angle. And if you look at the events that have been going on throughout the country and world, these energies, Uranus is kind of like earthquake energy, electrical quick change.
It's a shock to us, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Pluto, I always say Pluto is like a forest fire. It burns away everything in our life that we don't need. And forest fires are healthy. But in the middle of the fire, it could be a very traumatic sense, because our human minds always, number one, we know this, they always want to stay in control, and they always want to understand what's happening. You're not going to be able to understand what a raw, suppressed emotion for many, many years is going. You're not going to be mentally able to understand it. That's why you have to just be in a quiet space. Be to yourself. Let that feeling come up. Let it have its line of communication with you, and allow yourself to let it go. And that may obviously take work. But I was thinking also one technique that is helpful is breath work as this is occurring, or even a simple chant like Om.
Oh, that's a great one.
Yeah, because it's in a way you're allowing your body to let go of something that your mind doesn't understand. And that's why these practices are ancient. That's why they've been used and are currently still being used, because you are kind of getting the mind out of its control mode and just letting the body deal with the emotions the way it knows best.
So when triggers come up for us, or when things, and what I mean by triggers are when we feel an emotion, the key is to change our reaction. So how we may have reacted in the past, we want to change that. We want to redirect. We want to feel it, acknowledge it, release it, and then redirect that energy. Is that correct? Is that a correct?
Oh, I would agree with that, yeah. And also I kind of stress in a good way, when we are emptying out the bad luggage, so to speak, we have to replace it with something, a good habit. And that's why the quiet time, the listening to the high frequency music, meditative music, if you will, and some form of practice. Yoga is a simple thing that you can learn too. All these things you can really find out about online on YouTube's. You don't have to go to anywhere, any source anymore. It's all right there. But if you don't find the good habit to replace, we'll call this the bad habit of caving into these these harsh emotional triggers, then it's that empty vessel is going to get refilled with the bad habit.
It is, and I have a lot of clients that their frustration is that the same thing happens to them again and again, and that's the universe just urging them to work through it. Like, we're going to put it in front of you again and again and again, and until you work through it, until you figure out what's the emotion to it, and then move forward. And even just today, you and I were talking about our past is really there only to look back and learn from. It's not to allow us to get stuck or chained to it. It's to propel us forward, and that's really the time that we're in right now.
Yeah, getting back to the planets. A combination that's, in a sense, they're grinding against one another's energies. You got earthquake energy and volcanic energy. And that's, of course, affecting humanity. It's affecting us personally. But there's also another segment coming in called Black Moon Lilith, and that's the deep wounds. It's kind of a great reflection of what the shadow is. That's in the influence of Libra. So that's kind of giving us a reflection of how we relate, period. How we want to relate. What we lack in relating. And those other two influences, Capricorn and Aries, are kind of doing more of the personal I am ego and the way that we kind of construct various conditions in our life. So that's kind of a combination. That's kind of cataclysmic combination.
But it sounds that way. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse, because the sun is often our external, what we present out. Is that true for the solar eclipse then, the March 8th event?
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag, because another aspect called Chiron, the wounded healer, is directly behind the sun. So if you can envision the lineup of behind the sun is going to be this little asteroid called Chiron. We have the sun's influence, and then the new moon's lined up between it and the earth. So there's a straight line of energy. Sun, of course, can represent higher consciousness, yang energy, moon, yin energy, and Chiron is just the wounds we've chosen to overcome in this lifetime. It's like our life lessons, as well as humanity's wounds, all are going to be strongly reflected into all of us, in a sense, cornering us to say, you have to take care of this now. And that can be the full spectrum of the astrological possibilities.
And when you say that, it could be career and home and family,
partnerships,
and financial,
body.
Wellness. It could be anything, and that really depends on a deeper look in an individual's astrology chart.
Yes, but since it's in the sign of Pisces, it's about the suffering and the pain, the martyrdom that we feel inside, the victim consciousness, possibly just lack, and it's almost like it's saying, you don't want to change, we're going to give you more discomfort until you decide to change. And there's a personality that I listened to, Matt Kahn. You listen to?
Yeah, I love Matt Kahn.
He said, think of karma as your soul just wanting you to change. It's not punishing, it's not judging, it's just saying, you got to change.
Yeah. And I believe that we're here to experience that change. I mean, that's really why we're here.
And the planets are very dramatic in bringing this change. That eclipse is very dramatic in digging it up. So you have those two influences, clumps of influences coming together at the same time. So the cornering is legitimate. It's not painting in your corner now. It's black tar, cornered.
It's saying, get it done.
Yeah.
Get it done. And again, I want to remind our listeners that it's the universe really driving us to change that's good for us. And it might not always feel good, but it's necessary. And it's really why we're here.
Yeah.
And it's a necessary step. So there's no longer ways to avoid it.
No, the soul knows what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's that
these,
I am.
Yeah,
that
these times that we're talking about is kind of when the soul has it wants to impress its influence on us. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the more, if you need discomfort to change, it usually is a pretty good motivator.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going to get.
Yeah.
Now, realizing that's what's happening is very important, because if you're unaware of what's taking place, you are going to go to the bar, you are going to buy more ice cream, you are going to smoke your joint, because it's going to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But that's not a solution.
Right. That's a mask.
Mm-hmm.
That's another mask. And those that are moving into higher consciousness are going to see those masks. They're going to see the cover-ups of those around, and to me that's going to create greater separation between those that are doing the work.
It is, yeah.
And those that are choosing not to do the work, and that in itself is going to bring more uncomfortableness.
Yeah, because you may be living with these people.
Yeah.
You may be working with these people.
And one of the things that I know you and I both believe is that all of us are here on our own individual journeys. Mm-hmm. And so if we're choosing not to do this work, it's really our journey. Nothing can be done for us. We have to do it on our own, and that can be hard sometimes for a spouse or when you're in a relationship or with children. Mm-hmm. But the reality is it's their journey, and they get to make those choices now also.
And that's probably where this influence of the Black Moon, Lilith, and Libra, the relating, it's going to, in a sense, force us to look at how we relate in a healthy way. And that is exactly the same thing you're saying. Mm-hmm. We have to respect everyone's choices, mm-hmm. because this is a very dramatic period. Mm-hmm. And it just may be too overwhelming for many people, and many people you care and love.
Right.
And you just have to have the strength to allow that. It's even biblical.
To
the prodigal people.
It. So that's March 8th, and then we've got the spring equinox.
Yeah.
That's coming in. Can you share anything about that? I always think about the spring equinox as that's newness, that's happiness and joy, and planting the seeds for new beginnings. And I still think of that in that March time period.
And rightly so, coming after the solar eclipse with all, in a sense, all the dark parts of ourselves being exposed. About 10 days, maybe 2 weeks later, you have the opportunity to address all those matters that have come to the surface and come up with a formulated game plan, because the two signs involved are Pisces and Virgo. And Virgo, it's about your health and well-being and creating a regimen to kind of balance the ship, to get yourself on this path, because without your health, without a sense of peace, life's miserable. And this opportunity with the equinox, right after this type of an eclipse, and the alignment through the rest of the year, it's a very strong theme of Virgo. It's supporting this movement forward. Mm-hmm. And everybody has some way that they can adjust their lives to, even if it's more sleep, better diet, but some way that they can improve how they feel physically, mentally, and emotionally. There is always some way.
You're right, it doesn't have to be huge leaps and changes. It can be just a little bit. And, for listeners, we talked about 2016 as being a year of action also. And so that means the universe requires us to take some sort of action forward. And as you said, it could be just sleeping better, or eating breakfast, a decent breakfast. It can be small as we start, and then allow the shift to happen naturally. It doesn't have to be all at once.
There's that phrase, baby steps.
Yeah, it is.
Because if you make big leaps when you haven't been making leaps, you're going to slide right back down the hill.
Well, and it's hard on our systems too when we think. I know a lot of my clients are very competitive in nature, so they want to go from 0 to 100 very quickly, mm-hmm. and then they crash. and they don't understand why they've had that crash. And it is about getting the work done, but it's also doing it at a pace that is workable for you. It's not avoiding it, because we do have to do the work. So how about the full moon then? The end of March, and I think that's March 23rd, correct? It's the full moon.
I may have mixed up the dates, but end of the month.
Yeah, it's the end of the month.
I'm thinking you're the 28th.
Yeah, thanks.
That's why. Yeah, it's Laurie's birthday.
But there is, I mean, for those people that have birthdays in March.
Oh, it's going to be and September. You got to look at the opposite time of the year. They're getting triggered a slightly different way, but it's nonetheless very impactful.
Yep. So let's share the September ones that are coming in. Let's talk about the full moon, the lunar eclipse, then the end of March.
Yeah, that's going to be in early Libra and early Aries.
And so I think the moon is always our emotions.
Once again,
it's more internal.
Yeah, once again, it's relating Libra.
Yeah, that's right. So Libra is all about our emotions, and so that's more internal work for me. And that's what I pick up when I listen to the angels and the archangels. Is, the April time period is really that. It's that opening. We're supported by the planets. They're pushing us, but we're supported by our own drive to do this internal work. And then, do we get a break in April?
I respectfully decline to respond to that based on the Fifth Amendment.
and that's that's fair too, because all of us have our own work to do, and we go in cycles and patterns. And one of the other things for 2016 is to reset or to redo our patterns and our stories. A lot of us have the same old stories, the same old rut that we've been in, or the same old pattern.
And that's where the energy of the Virgo, it's regimented,
right,
methodical,
right.
So you got to create the good habits that you can do.
So it's not just we're done at the end of March; it's a continuum, and that's what we're going to be in this.
One thing about eclipses is they're 6-month cycles.
Yeah.
And if they come close to your birthday or to the position of your moon rising, but especially the identity of your birth sun, it can last a year, and therefore it's almost like you're just starting that marathon.
But it can be a really good year, and it could be a good marathon.
Of course, it usually, I've had this happen to me, and I know ahead of time. So I actually start preparing and doing the so-called work weeks before the eclipses.
So that brings up a good point. Do you
does,
have some secrets that you can share with, some of the things that you do to prepare?
Exactly what we've been saying when you get hit with this wall of shadow energy. Just start addressing it now. Give yourself that quiet time now. Go out into nature now. Get a membership at the gym now, because emotion can be broken down to 2 words: energy and motion, or 3 words: energy and motion. So if you have emotion and you're just going to sit and do nothing, it's going to implode. But if you give it an access, and I like to go and exercise and be outside all the time. I have avenues, but for those who don't have that access, they can start thinking, what can I do? If just even doing yoga for 15 minutes, you'd be amazed at how much stress can be released.
I tell people in Minnesota, just turn on the radio and dance in the kitchen. I mean, just move. Just do a little bit of moving releases a lot. So we have these major planetary events in March, and then there's another set. So the 6 months comes then in September. So we'll have another lunar and another solar eclipse happening in the September time period.
It's going to be in Virgo and Pisces again.
And that's not unusual, because we are in a circular pattern, and so can people expect much of the same in that time period, or it depends on what work they've done in the March time period?
Yeah, well, partly there's going to be a few movements of, like the Black Moon Lilith will be out of the equation, and a few separating aspects between the Uranus and Pluto. So I would say it would be just maybe I'm thinking 20% less intense, but it's still going to be intense.
Okay.
Nonetheless, but that's kind of like jumping a little bit too far ahead, because Usually these eclipses, you got 3 months of the drudgery after it hits you. And the midpoint, somewhere in the summer, early summer, would be when you start to feel if you've allowed this so-called processing and guidance of your soul to walk you through these stages, and you cooperate as much as you can, then that midpoint seems to lighten up a lot. And you almost feel like you have overcome something significant, accomplished something significant, even though materially or even physically you may look the same, but there is a sense, and that's that knowing, higher consciousness sense of, yeah, you got it done.
Well, it's moving into that higher evolution.
Now, if you didn't do anything, then the next ecliptic period, it's even, you're getting cement blocks put around the corner in the room.
It's more intense.
Yes.
Because we've been having eclipses every year.
Yeah, they change signs, and other, certain planets, as they change signs, are going to be a factor with the eclipse. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's a bare eclipse with no other aspects. When Chiron's involved, the deep wounds that we have, when the Black Moon Lilith is very similar, and the sign of Pisces is all of the, essentially the uncomfortableness of our existence. It's all being shown to us.
Yeah.
So think of yourself looking in a mirror with these energies, and those times we were teenagers when our face was full of blotches. How did you feel about yourself? Not very well. Well, these energies are going to kind of promote that with you. So when you have blemishes, when you have gotten sunburn or bags under your eyes, you're kind of being motivated to do something to change your appearance, to make it look more presentable. Well, these energies are kind of mirroring to you what is no longer necessary. You don't need to continue to look that way or feel that way. And it's up to you to make the changes.
It is. It's all within our own being.
But it's going to be that obvious, though. And the mirroring is going to be that obvious. And the mirroring, of course, is going to come through other people.
Through others. Yeah. Because that's where the experience comes in. And that's where some issues have to happen because of that.
That was just the fairies acknowledging Laurie Wondra's last few comments.
So before we close out, are there any other nuggets that you want to share with our listeners about what's coming in March and April?
I think that is more than enough, because it's one of those times in our life's cycle where we can't avoid this falsity of what we feel is important in our life. And that, I think, is one last thing, is it can be a lot of the external things that we thought were important. This influence is showing us how unimportant they are. And you'll see that with whatever doesn't work, or I should say, whatever doesn't flow in your life now. And it could be in any area of life. It's kind of a reflection of the universe saying this is no longer necessary. And your false ego will challenge that because it's holding on to that identity. So this is also about letting go of false identity. And
blessing it as you let it go is just to bless it, send it on its way, and then, as we talked earlier, allowing the new to come in. So.
Yeah, we want the new to come in, because the new always brings excitement, adventure, a different flavor of ice cream.
That's good. We like ice cream. So, Mark, I just want to thank you for joining me tonight with Yourlifecore Blog Talk Radio. It's been truly a pleasure. I talk quite frequently about planetary influences, but I'm not the astrologist that you are, so I appreciate you being able to join me.
Thank you.
And I am appreciative of being able to be here with you in Sedona. So until next time, this is Laurie Wondra with Yourlifecore Blog Talk Radio.